Thanks, everybody. My name's EG. I'm one of the co-founders of Infura, and about 3 years ago, we started our DIN protocol. So in case you're not familiar and haven't heard, I'll give you a quick overview. Infura is a centralized SaaS provider. We've provided RPC for the Ethereum and Web3 ecosystem since we launched in 2016. And the evolution of Infura's business model is something that we now have called the Decentralized Infrastructure Network. For years, we got a lot of flack from the ecosystem about being overly centralized, having too much control. What would happen if Infura went down? Does it mean your MetaMask stops working? Does it mean your Coinbase wallet or whatever wallet you're using stops working? And what were we doing as the providers of that critical infrastructure to mitigate that? We were just trying to keep our heads above water for the longest time and just running like the SaaS service as best as we could. And then in 2022, we started to think about what a truly decentralized version of that service would be. Decentralized RPC was something that people had already been talking about, but we wanted to go like a level beyond that because RPC is just one of the services that powers Web3. There are so many other services now that comprise what traditionally is called a dApp, and it used to just be your Ethereum node or your blockchain node and a front end for that. So how do you find all of these types of services that you now need to build in today's world? And a marketplace made a lot of sense. So DIN is a marketplace protocol for finding the things that you need to build in Web3. There's a lot of different APIs and services that exist out there. If you wanted to build an app in the early days of Ethereum, you pretty much just needed to use Infura. Now when there's like 12 different chains that your application might be using, you might have 4, 5, 6 different RPC providers, other types of services on top of that. We all have credit card subscriptions. You have account managers with like every single one. It's a pretty complex, like high friction process. And the introduction of agentic activity means how there's a lot more activity that's happening on chain because of AI, and how do those things get access to this infrastructure? Being able to have a discoverability layer so that agents can discover the types of services that they need started to be necessary in addition to just improving the lives of developers. When you think of the types of things that would exist on this marketplace, it's not just RPC, it's not just Web3 type services, it's really anything. We now look at DIN as a protocol focused at making agentic activity happen, agentic developer activity. Like you can think of how an agent is going to book a conference room space for an event. At some point there's going to be like an MPC API for that type of interaction. And how does the AI find something like that? It can find it through like, traditional like web crawling and things like that, but there are initiatives that are now taking place. The EIP 8004 specification is something that our company Consensus has been working on in collaboration with the Ethereum Foundation, with people from Google and others in the space that are interested in standardizing what that interaction looks like. And that's a specification for what a MPC service looks like in using the EVM or the Ethereum network as the registry for that service. So any of these APIs that I'm talking about that give you access to interact with the real world or with data platforms can exist through this EIP standard. And then how do you pay for those things in a standardized way? X402 is something that Coinbase pushed as another standard for on-chain payments, and that's been fantastic as a way that people can get paid for offering services. If you were around 5, 6, 7 years ago, utility tokens were huge in terms of how to pay for specific services, especially services that somebody was providing because they were incentivized through staking and rewards and slashing mechanisms. But the fragmentation came with payment for tokens. It introduced this high friction of you had to hold like 12 different tokens to interact with 12 different services. X402 is a standardized way of paying for those services with whatever token the operator of the service is willing to accept for payment. And lastly, eigenlayers and AVS kind of standardizes how people can be incentivized to offer these services through staking without having a slightly different staking mechanism across each of these services. So that's how we've decided to build DIN, is build an agentic marketplace using existing components that are out there rather than recreating things from scratch. There's all of these standards that we could kind of put together to offer this new version of Infura that we've been talking about. And this is what the interaction would look like. There's 3 different types of experiences that usually interact with our services. Wallets, or users interacting with wallets like MetaMask. The new agentic activity that's been growing on Infura usage. And our traditional like dApp developer audience. And all of these things are using the services that are behind this marketplace. This is what our actual protocol looks like. So DIN is this marketplace platform for API and service discovery. Below that, you have 3 different components. The payments is what I was talking about with X402, but X402 is just one way of accepting payments on this network. If you think about a marketplace, somebody might want to accept Visa, somebody might want to accept cash, like whatever way people want to accept service payment for services, the marketplace shouldn't dictate that. So X402 is just the first standard that we've integrated. We're also looking at supporting streaming payments through the Superfluid protocol for somebody that needs more of a traditional time-based subscription. And there's going to be other ones that we'll implement after that. The DIN router is the thing that just all of the traffic routes or passes through and guarantees a certain level of quality and availability for the services that users are interacting with. And the DIN watcher is what you would expect if you're familiar with like watchtower type architectures, which is what guarantees a service level agreement or certain level of quality for the services that are on this marketplace. Like you can find any kind of service that's out there, but how do you know it's reliable? How do you know that you can trust them with your data? This watcher mechanism is the system that we created to be able to give a score to each of these different infrastructure operators that users or developers or agents can use to make informed decisions about how their traffic gets routed and handled. And then lastly, like I was talking about with EigenLayer, that's the way that people stake to offer these services. So this isn't something that's in development. We've been developing this already for the last 3 years, and there's already 18 full networks, 36 if you count test networks, that are live on DIN. We've started with RPC to kind of prove out this use case and say that if you need to interact with any of these chains that are on here, they're already available through DIN. And if there's other chains out there, it's pretty simple for us to integrate them at this point. And we're growing beyond this into other APIs, specifically with Web3 and eventually beyond just Web3 data. The EigenLayer restaking phase is something that we've been in a test net with for the last few months, and next month we're finally moving into our mainnet phase where staking through EigenLayer goes live, and we'll be able to move into like the full launch of our protocol. All of this stuff is, it's been a lot of work, not just getting infrastructure operators participating in the network, getting users to understand what the different way is of interacting with these services rather than just going through the traditional Infura experience. There's a link on our Infura site that I'll put at the very end that goes to our white paper detailing how all of these interactions between entities works. But we're ready for launch, we're ready for mainnet. Over the next few months, you're going to see more initiatives coming from us about the community that we're building around this. We want more services to be on this network, on this marketplace. If there aren't if you don't see the types of services that you're using to build your applications on DIN already, feel free to reach out to us either through Telegram, through our DMs on X. We want to integrate these things. It's a specification that's open at this point, that's extensible. If your API or service is something that you don't know if it fits into this model, I'm pretty sure it does, and we can work with you to get it onto this marketplace and immediately make it accessible to our Infura audience of like 50,000 registered developers. So please follow along. This is where we're at currently on our DIN journey, And we'll be doing more stuff later on this year at Dev Connect. But thank you for coming today. Thanks to YQ and the AltLayer team for hosting. Appreciate it.